TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Vince Jr. loved bodybuilding, as most of us all know, and he was mesmerized at the big 22-inch guns, that I had, and of course I didn't socialize with Vince because I was the heel, and then it just didn't work to be around it was so old school thinking, and but he was just a lot of fun. He had loved the promos. He loved the bodybuilding. He loved the whole deal. And but he did know that he'd bodybuilded, worked out with Bob Backlund a lot on the road when we were doing TV and stuff like that, And so, he really enjoyed me and the whole gimmick,
Right.
I started weightlifting when I was actually in the 5th grade. My brother was working out, older brother. On the way home from school, he would pick me up and take me to the gym. 5th grade, started lifting weights that early, so stayed with me.
Was there any rumors of maybe stunting your growth or anything? Were you scared of anything like that?
Oh no. Back then they didn't have any knowledge of weightlifting or bodybuilding. They really don't like adolescents to do it because it does do something to the bone growth, but it never affected anything at all.
Did you prefer weightlifting over regular sports?
Bodybuilding. Yeah, I found regular sports like football, the contact too much. I felt I was kind of fragile, actually, believe it or not. So bodybuilding was and more of an individual sport.
You told a story in your book about meeting an older woman as a kid. Can you tell a story for our fans?
Oh, yeah. When I was 16 years old, walking home from high school, I took a shortcut one day, and I saw this gym in this guy's front yard, and all the weights outside, all the equipment outside the front yard. I said, man, this is cool, So I checked it out, knocked on the door. The lady, her husband and her husband's and her boyfriend, she had a husband and a boyfriend. And they were away working, so I asked her what was going on, and she said, "You're invited to work out here anytime." And so, of course, I did. And then I began to work out when nobody was around, and she let me know that it was so hot in Phoenix at that time that she'd walk around her house nude without any clothes on because it was so hot. And I said, "What time do you do that?" And so that was my first real experience with an older woman. She pretty good deal. Yes, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I met Arnold 1 week after he arrived in this country in late November of 1968. 1 week. We became instant friends, trained with Arnold for the next 5 or 6 years. And Arnold was driven from day one. He said he would be a movie star. And I told Arnold, "Are you kidding me? You can't even speak English." I have to use subtitles. You're so bad at English. And of course, he laughed, and that was his personality, being happy, funny, always joking. And so I mentioned that because it brings in which we'll probably talk about later, the roid rage stuff that was so overblown because the roid rage, you pretty much have to have a nasty attitude to begin with. And people like Arnold, who use massive amounts of steroids, myself, always good-natured and never had any problem with steroid rage. But Arnold was driven. He knew what he was going to do, and he did it. And I remember walking after workout at Gold's Gym, the original Gold's Gym in Santa Monica, and then going to the beach, Venice, getting some sun. Gonna head from the beach out to the surf, swim a little bit. Arnold was about 10 feet ahead of me, and I looked down at his calves, these enormous calves. And his calves, matter of fact, people thought he was shooting silicone in his calves at that time, but he just worked them relentlessly. And on the way out to the water, I looked down at his calves, they were huge. And I said, "Arnold, your calves make your knee are so big it makes your knees look insignificant." And he said, turn around and said, "What does insignificant mean?" That's how early I knew Arnold. Didn't even know what the word insignificant meant. So here was a guy who was so rich and charisma and driven. It was like he was almost had special genes in him to make him to what he eventually became.
How did you wind up getting in the middle of the whole Zahorian mess?
Oh, that was on my own initiative. I injected myself, as Jerry McDevitt said. I injected myself into it because I said, "Well, I got something to say here," and I contacted the Attorney General's office, who was doing the thing against Zahorian and everything. I said, "Hey, man, I got a lot to say here." And so they said, "Okay, come on in." And they used me as the rebuttal witness, even though my name wasn't on any FedEx packages that were going out to all the guys, But I was getting drugs from Zahorian through UPS, and regular mail, And I said, "Hey, man, I can finish him off for you." So I was, And so here's the oddity of it. I'm waiting in the courthouse in Harrisburg for them to call me downstairs. And I was taking house songs at the time and some Valium. I was having drug problems. And here I am going to testify in a drug trial. And I'm up in the Attorney General's office taking drugs. God, man,
Do you regret any of this, or it was fun to look back? Do you regret any of it?
Oh, no. I don't regret it because Zahorian was a monster. Because I was buying drugs from him, and at one point I was taking a drug called Ativan, a little stronger than the Valium, but still a sedative.
Right.
And I told Zahorian, "Man, he said, he called me up and said, I got a great deal on 1,000 Ativan. Gets them right from the factory, man. He had it, I said, 1,000 Ativan. I said, "You know what, Doc?" I said, "At this time I'm trying to get off. I just got to get off this stuff." He said, "What?"
Big pushing.
He was pissed. I was trying to get off, trying to get clean. He said, "You told me, Ativan." I said, "Yeah." But I said, "It's time, man." I said, "I've been overdose almost. I got it." And he was pissed off. Think about that. He was actually angry that I was not going to buy. He would have been fine if I would have died, overdose. But the fact that I didn't buy the order, he got angry. That's
made it easier for you to get involved with this situation.
Yeah.
Did Vince ever call you during this time and ask you to bury the hatchet?
No, I was never called.
When Ken Kennedy calls you a hypocrite for your stance against steroids, how do you respond to that? Ken Kennedy?
Oh, yeah, that was a big deal. Yeah, that was a big deal because he on his blog, the deal, said I'm blaming the business, ironically and humorously. And from the first interview I did on the Benoit situation was Katie Couric, National CBS News. And I called Linda McMahon, the first interview this thing started. And I said, tell Linda that I'm going to take care of the office, the business, and I'm going to put distance between steroids and Benoit's massacre of the innocent. And I did that. And I got a call back from Linda's secretary saying, "Thank you, superstar, for, taking care of, trying to put distance between the company steroids and this massacre."
It was an isolated incident.
It was isolated, yeah. And so I personally wrote an email to Ken Kennedy and sent it via John Laurinaitis' secretary, Ann Gordon. I think her name was Ann Gordon, and had her forward to Ken Kennedy my response that somehow you're off on this because you look at every show, I put distance between roids being the blame for this. And I never have blamed the business on my steroid use. I was using steroids in 1968. So somehow he must have been, in his enthusiasm to defend the office, must have taken something I said out of context.
Right. So you guys buried the hatchet pretty much?
I never heard from him.
Oh, you never responded to him?
No, I never heard from him. And I forwarded that email to Ann Gordon, and Ann Gordon forwarded it to John Laurinaitis. And John Laurinaitis emailed me back and said, "I'll take care of this when I get back from vacation." Well, when he got back from vacation, it was already over. Yeah, the deal's over. Yeah. And so I was surprised. I was surprised because I had spent time with Ken, talking to him. I really think he's a great piece of talent and everything.
Like the next big thing.
Yeah, they can talk, and and I told him point blank, I said, "You young man don't need sauce." I told him at one of these arenas on my book tour, I said, "You do not need steroids. I see you as another future Roddy Piper. The talk, the whole deal, and that's when after Eddie died and, the steroid deal, intervention wellness deal, I said, you do not need sauce, man. Don't even worry about taking sauce." So I actually encourage the guy not to take sauce.
Right.
So it's odd. It's odd.
You'll probably work it out next time you see him.
I hope so. Yes. Yeah. Because my wife Valerie really liked the guy too. He was really a nice guy, very polite, and so there was some bad communication on that deal.
TitleMatchNetwork.com